Hi, I'm Johnny and you're watching the Hexy Beast. And on this episode, I'm going to be doing my top 10 solo board games digital edition, where I take a look at all the games that have solo modes from my Steam library. Anyway, let's just get on with the list, shall we? Okay, so first of all, let's go over the rules of the list. The first rule is that, once again, I have to own the game, and it has to be my own game. So, for example, things like The Captain is Dead, which I have covered on this channel, and Nemesis Lockdown, which I have used to stream on someone else's channel, which were both provided to me with review code, so these two games don't qualify for the list. Also, the game has to have an official solo mode, so I'm not just counting computer AI, and you'll see why that's important as we go through. So anyway, let's just get on with the first one on the list with number 10. Okay, so the first game on the list at number 10 is Terraforming Mars. And I have to say that although I don't think the actual solo mode of Terraforming Mars is that interesting, because all you really have to do is get all 3 tracks up to the top by the end of the time limit, but I do really enjoy playing the game digitally because it doesn't take up so much space on my table. It does have the official solo mode, all the card art is nice, it's really well produced, very little bugs and stuff in it, and for that reason, that's why Terraforming Mars got my number 10 spot on this list. Now anyway, let's move on to number 9. Okay, so at number 9 on this list we have Sagrada, which is a dice placement sort of puzzle game in the solo mode. You basically have 10 turns to get as much score as you can in order to beat the AI opponent, which collects whatever dice you don't pick up. It's a really fun solo mode and is often a game I will suggest to new gamers. In fact, a lot of the time if people are struggling about what to buy, I will say try the digital version of Sagrada, see if you like it, and then get the box version to take home. It's one of those games that I really enjoy. It kind of has a special space in my heart for me because it was one of the games that my mother bought me before she died. It's one of those just generally really good puzzly games that are sort of quick to play, easy to get out, only 2 pages of rules, but in the digital version you don't have to worry about any of that. It has a full tutorial, and if you really like it, you can play online, but for the solo mode it has the official one. So anyway, that was Sagrada. Let's move on to number 8. Okay, so that brings us on to number 8, and I was kind of unsure whether I should include these, but I realised that these are actually quite a big deal when it comes to solo gaming, so I decided to include the Fighting Fantasy Classics collection on this list. They're a series of choose your own adventure books which came out like back in the 80s or something. I'm not sure, I'm not really old enough, I haven't been into the hobby long enough to know that. But the digital version is really decent if you just want to go through a couple of the books in the series. There's a lot available, some are not free, but I know that you can get Fire Top Mountain for free. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. But yeah, I really enjoy the Fighting Fantasy Classics books digitally. I don't think they'd be able to hold my attention as a physical version, so for that reason I've decided to include Fighting Fantasy Classics on this top 10 solo board games list digital edition. So anyway, let's move on to number 7. Okay, so that brings us on to number 7, which is One Deck Dungeon, which is a dungeon crawl game with a dice placement mechanic in order to complete its objectives. The way this game works is you sort of draw a card, well, you draw 4 cards, you pick one of them, and for every card you complete, you gain experience, etc., that you can spend at the end of a run in order to improve your character. I really enjoy the fact that the character progression is tracked in the app, and I for one find the only way to really play One Deck Dungeon myself is usually digitally, and for that reason that's why it's got number 7 on this list of top 10 solo board games digital edition. So anyway, let's move on to number 6. Okay, so at number 6 on the list I have decided to put Everdell, which is an engine building card game with a worker placement mechanic, which the digital version does actually include the Rugwort solo mode, so for that reason it qualifies for the list. I've always enjoyed Everdell solo. It wasn't until recently when I played it with other players that I realised its turn structure can be a bit off-putting for multiplayer, but that doesn't really matter here because we're solo gamers, right? So as a solo game, you basically have workers and seasons, and the way it works is that each season it will change which cards in your engine will actually reap the rewards. You'll have 2 harvest phases throughout the game, and then there's like a 3rd phase where it just lets you take a card for free. Well, in the solo mode, you're basically trying to compete against Rugwort, which will also pick up cards which have points values associated to them. In the digital version, it keeps track of everything nicely for you, and I just want to say that I've really enjoyed it, and when it came out this year, I thought the digital version of Everdell was really highly produced. The only thing that kind of bugged me about it was the fact that the card rows at the bottom of the screen are not equal, and considering your card only has 15 cards in its engine, it can be a bit off-putting not having a nice square with 3 rows of 5 in it. But anyway, that was my number 6 Everdell Digital Edition, so let's move on to number 5. Okay, so for number 5, it's one of the games that I do actually play quite a lot on Steam, and I play multiplayer as well as solo, but it does include the official solo mode, and that is Wingspan Digital Edition. It's an engine building card game, not too dissimilar from Everdell, although it has very different sort of ways to kick off the engine, as you can do it manually by placing cubes at the end of a row. I just really enjoy the fact that they transitioned the game really well from tabletop to the PC. I really enjoy the fact that it doesn't involve me having a massive stack of cards by the time I've expanded it on my table, which I generally elbow and knock over. All in all, I find I do play the solo version of Wingspan quite a lot. In fact, on my Steam library, I think it's well over 100 hours at this point. But anyway, that was number 5, Wingspan. So let's move on to number 4. Okay, the next one almost didn't make the list. In fact, I was still unsure up until this morning whether I wanted to include it. And the main reason for that is that although it is a great game, it has now been removed from the Steam store, so it's unable to be purchased by anyone. But that game is Tales from Candlekeep: Tomb of Annihilation. It's a game from the D&D Adventure series, which if any of you have seen the channel know I have quite a few of them in a box. But this is a digital version of the Tomb of Annihilation board game that was made by Wizards of the Coast. And I just want to say that I really do enjoy this digital version, but it's quite sad that nobody has sort of like picked it up and decided to republish it and put it out on Steam again. So unfortunately, you're unable to buy this game, but I really enjoy it and I do still play it a lot, even though other people can't. So that's the reason it's got the number 4 spot on this list. So anyway, let's move on to the top 3. What are they going to be? Okay, so for number 3 on this list, it's actually going to be quite an unusual one, and it's also probably the only time you will ever hear me mention Gloomhaven on this channel. So at number 3, yes, that's the digital version of Gloomhaven, which also includes the Jaws of the Lion DLC, which I've bought personally. It's not really a secret that I'm not a big fan of the physical version of Gloomhaven, but for me, I find the digital version kind of sucks all the things that kind of made the game bad for me as a physical product. And I know this isn't a popular opinion, but I honestly think that Gloomhaven makes a better video game than it does a board game. And it's basically like a big campaign-based dungeon crawl with turn-based battles and a lot of like card play where you play one top part of a card and one bottom part of a card to produce a 2-card combo each turn. Like I said, a lot of people really love the physical version of this game, but for me, the setup and all the fiddliness of actually like running a campaign of Gloomhaven is such a bother that instead I'd much rather just play the digital version. So for that reason, that's why Gloomhaven makes a better video game than a board game. So now, let's see what's at number 2. Okay, so we're on to the last couple of games of this list, and what do you think's at number 2? Well, for me, I just couldn't not include this. It's Aeon's End. I think that this game is one of the best deck building games there ever was, and the digital version, although lacking a good multiplayer component, which means if you do want to play with people, you have to share play. And I know when I was talking about the solo rules that the only time it would count is if it includes an official solo mode, and I know for this game that playing co-op I would play two-handed normally on a table, so for that reason I've decided to include it. It's one of those games that I really enjoy. It has a really interesting deck builder mechanic where you don't shuffle. In fact, I've actually played this game on Gaming Rules with Paul Grogan a few weeks ago, so go check that stream out. Aeon's End is just so tight, so neat, so hard, so challenging. There's just something about it. It's been a game I've enjoyed a long time, and I have a feeling I'm just going to keep enjoying it. And now that we've got the New Age stuff coming out and all the extra expansions getting added to it, I just can't see myself not playing it almost daily at this point. So, that's Aeon's End at number 2. What do you think is going to be at number 1? So I know what you're thinking. What is number 1? And why has he made us wait so long to tell us? Well, I just got to say that the reason I've chosen this game as number 1 is because it really does adapt itself perfectly in a digital space compared to its tabletop counterpart. And that game is Spirit Island. It's a threat management game, sort of, where you're kind of protecting an island from its invaders by playing the role of a spirit. Has a lot of interesting card play. It's just really good, like, look for it digitally. It allows you to use either thematic or non-thematic sides of the boards. It allows you to make them bumpy or flat. You can use the 2D art on the thematic boards. You can change the background map. There's just a lot of things that you can do in this version of Spirit Island. Also, with its DLC, you can get hold of some of those rare promos that you can't really find physically. So for that reason, that's why Spirit Island has made my #1 digital solo game of the year. So anyway, if you've been enjoying the content or just fancy watching another one of my videos, please feel free to smash that subscribe button up there and check out another one of my videos by here. Anyway, I've been Johnny, you've been watching the Hexy Beast. Thank you for watching, and most of all, stay Hexy everyone.